All right, I have clicked the go live button, and I think we're up. Although I don't see anything. Hopefully we're streaming. It's odd. It's a black screen. Oh, nope. Woo! It's working. I think we have audio. I think we have guests. I think we have, well, guests. I think we have
We have
not.
everything.
We have what? Sorry?
We have everything.
Maybe. Remy, give me a thumbs up if this is working. If I was looking into a 6-foot tank, hypothetically, could we build a light for it? Wow, he just comes right in. How controllable are the rapid LED units? You talking about these? These are pretty basic. Um, and I'm removing all dimming from it because I want it to look cleaner. So, Remy, hit me up later. Remy, Lulu, is or did as a child, as a youngster, maybe not child, but younger, vacationed near Leech, up north, Leech Lake.
Hmm?
Which is kind of near
All
my
right, I
cabin,
got.
right? And it's kind of near. You have something up there, don't you?
Yeah, kind of more up towards like Akeley and Crow Wing,
Yeah,
one of the Crow Wings.
yeah. You're probably 15 minutes from mine, because I'm on third.
That's not bad.
All right, so AZ Reefer's on, Bahama Llama's on, Fragile Reefer's on, Carlos is always on, and I appreciate that. Longville, that's where Bahama Llama was. Hamada's on, but
Oh,
we. What? Go ahead. Did you freeze? You might.
uh,
Oh, there you are.
made my thing disappear now. Get it back.
I can't tell if it's my
All right,
connection
there we go.
or somebody else. I'm not sure what connection's going on. Aaron's on. Sleeve Stack's on, which that name cracks me up. Takes me back to the freaking 70s, 60s, whatever that was. Probably 70s. And we have Lulu, known as Lunette Lulu 7 on Instagram. And we're going to talk about what?
Oh, pretty much anything. I think mostly photography,
Yep, talking about
right?
photography. So it was a long time ago that I saw your pictures. What's up, Taylor? And you take great reef photography.
Oh, thanks.
What got you into reefing? A and two, what got you into reefing photography?
Um, Pretty much. I kind of started out with like a freshwater tank, and I wanted to add in like color, and I tried doing like the planet whole planet tank and stuff like that, but there like really isn't anything colorful you can add besides like green
Mm-hmm.
in freshwater. So I went. I won a bunch of money in penny slots, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do a reef tank, and that's what I did.
That's awesome.
So I was kind of mad at the time because I was told we were going to Duluth and by some friends, and we ended up pulling out off the side of the road about 20 miles shy of Duluth,
Mm-hmm.
and we were at a casino, and I was just in a bad mood the whole time, and I ended up winning 1,200 bucks in penny slots.
That's one way to cheer up a trip.
Yeah. hmm So,
So that got you into reefing. That got you into your first tank. What'd that tank look
mhm.
like? What'd you do?
Um, So basically what I did is everybody was like, "Oh, go bigger, do at least 50 gallons, do this, do that." But the thing was is that everything like I wanted to only use that money to make the entire tank.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a little Fluval Evo, I think online, and they were like $120, and it came with like the return pump, the light. The only extra stuff that I did add was a wave maker
Yep.
and a heater because in Minnesota in the basement in the wintertime it gets cold quick. Um, so I got all that stuff and I went to one of the local stores here. It's called Nueva Aquaria. And I got to meet the owner, Jen, and she was the one she's like my version of like a reef sensei.
Cool.
She, Jen?
Yeah, no, I said cool. Sorry.
Oh, I thought you said who. So um, she was very helpful and was just kind of flat out told me, you're starting a nano tank and they're extremely hard to keep
Yep.
because water parameters change and they're way there's more impact with them because there isn't a volume of water to absorb like the different changes and stuff like that.
Yep.
So she said, I'm gonna set you up right so you don't get into this and then hate it. So what we initially did was we did like a system transfer. So I brought home like cured live rock, water from her tank, and then I bought live sand. And then, I set it all up and then I just kind of sat there and was like, okay, now what?
Now you wait.
And I wait.
Yep.
But so
But you didn't wait. That's
I
what.
didn't wait in the sense that I like within a couple of days after setting it up, I did go out and buy like my cleanup crew.
Yep.
But I did monitor all of the parameters and stuff like that. And it did have a little spike and stuff like that, but then it kind of settled down and then I got fish.
Got it.
So, and then it was kind of like, this will be kind of cool. You know how people, take pictures of, say, like a plant or something, and they put them all together, and then it does this really cool, like you can see it grow in like 3 minutes
Yep.
or whatever over the course of a year. I was like, I want to do something like that.
Time lapse.
So, what?
Time lapse.
Time lapse, yep.
Yep.
So I was like, okay, well, how do I want to do this? And I thought about just putting it on my Facebook page, and I was like, because at the time it was like just when everybody would post their dinner on Facebook, and everybody would be like, "Why you gotta show me what you're eating?" I didn't want to do that with my fish tank and just annoy the heck out of like my family and friends.
Yep.
And I also wanted feedback because I like taking pictures. I kind of thought, okay, well maybe I'll start my own Instagram for this reef tank because I want the feedback on what people think of like my photograph work.
Yep.
At the same time. And it'd be also kind of interesting what people think about like the whole like little reef tank what's the word I'm looking for? The reef tank, not community, like environment that I made.
Okay.
And like suggestions on what I could do better. Yeah, and like yeah, so I put a picture up there and I posted and I was like, okay. Well, all of a sudden it was like, cool. I got like 2 or 3 people following me. This is great.
Yep.
And yeah, so it just kind of exploded from there. I Innovative Marine then I started this in about July-ish of 2017. And, everything was going pretty good and stuff like that. And then I was like, because at the time too, I was also taking a photography class for digital photography because everything that I had known has been on film.
Yep. Same.
And well, film's going away. It's almost gone now.
Mm-hmm.
So I took out my camera. I was like, well, what am I going to photograph? And this is about like December. And in December in Minnesota, there's nothing. Everything is white. There's snow. Nothing cool to take a picture of. So I took out my camera and I was like, well, I'll just start taking pictures of my fish tank.
Mm-hmm.
And then, it just kind of like evolved from there. And then the type of lenses that I had at the time weren't very good in the sense that they were designed to take things from like pictures from stuff like far away and landscapes and stuff like that, which I like doing.
Yep.
But then that Christmas I ended up investing in a macro lens.
Perfect. What size?
It's 100 millimeter macro.
Okay. You're shooting Canon?
Yes.
Okay.
Honestly, you can do it. You can do it with any kind of camera.
Yeah, I mentioned it because Remy just got. I think he's Canon as well, and I think he also just picked up the 100 mil. Is it the Canon branded?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I think he just got the
Yeah.
same lens.
Okay. Cause and like I guess if you're looking to start into doing like photography and stuff like that, I know here, I don't know if they're national, but here in Minnesota we have a thing, it's called, or a store, it's called National Camera
Mm-hmm.
Exchange. And you can actually rent photography equipment and try it out by yourself.
Yep.
And if
Borrow.
you like it, yep. And then if you like it, you can buy it.
Yep.
And then you get, like a discount or whatever. The rental fee was maybe off of the lens. I can't remember what it is. It's been a long time.
I've used
Done it.
borrowlenses.com.
Okay.
Very similar thing, and they ship and make it super easy.
Yeah. So I ended up picking up that lens, and at the time too, I was okay. So there's like two different, like I had a crop sensor
Mm-hmm.
camera at the
Yep.
time. It had a very old entry level Rebel T2i.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just using that
That was a super
because
popular digital SLR when it came out. Everybody, all the Canon,
yes,
right? All the Canon hobbyists had that.
yes, and it's and two, the one thing that I learned is that it doesn't necessarily matter as much if you have like a full frame camera or as a crop sensor camera,
Mm-hmm.
as long as you know how like setting up photographs and stuff like that works,
Yep.
and you invest the money in the lenses,
Mm-hmm.
you can make the entry level cameras work.
Totally agree. Totally agree that 80, 90% of it is the glass hanging off of that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've shot full frame and cropped forever. Like, as soon as digital SLRs came out, one of my jobs in the Air Force gave me the opportunity to use some pretty nice cameras. And I was shooting with full frame stuff, and it was really nice. But everything that I have here and everything from that point on has all been crop sensors. But
Yeah.
but most people don't even know that there is such a thing, right? They look through and they're like, "Yep, it's cool." And especially when they hang a macro off there, and then they're like, "Oh, now I can do something different than I could do before." And that's when they get to
Yeah.
playing with macro.
Yeah, and there's also plenty of different options. Unfortunately, I haven't tried this with like reef tank stuff, but I've done it elsewhere because macro lenses aren't cheap
Yep.
by any means. But you can try getting, they make these things, they're called extension
Mm-hmm.
tubes, and you can put them on whatever lens you do have, and it does the same sort of effect.
Yeah, you can do extension tubes. There's also threaded. You lose a lot of
Mm-hmm.
quality. You're going to start softening up your image, but it is a good way to try. I like the tube idea.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot of people know about tubes.
Yeah, and they're relatively cheap
Yep.
too. I think they're only like what, maybe $100.
What I did is I bought my lens. I buy a lot of lenses used. I'm
That's
trying.
what I
I'm
do.
trying to think if I've bought a new one, and I don't think I have. All of the ones that I've purchased for the last 10 years have been used, and I've just had good luck. So you find a reputable source, moving good glass around, and like my 80 to 200 Nikon is a 1986 model, and I got it, and it looked great. But then I sent it to Nikon because I got a great price on the thing, and I sent it off to
Mm-hmm.
Nikon, had them clean it up, take it apart, replace whatever they needed to do, all the screws, whatever. All the glass was good, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a good way to get into a nice lens at a relatively inexpensive price.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like I know too, like sometimes every once in a while, like I know for instance the macro lens that I bought it used,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like two or three, sometimes $400 off of like retail price.
Yep.
And the one that I ended up getting was someone, it was like they bought it, decided they didn't like it, and traded it in.
Yep. There you go.
So
When you're
there's ways,
shooting, go ahead. Sorry.
there's ways to get into photography that are affordable, and anybody pretty much I think can do it. It's just like reaping, you kind of got to be patient and kind of wait for the right deals to come around.
And I think, just like reefing, I think some people will claim that reefing is a really expensive hobby, and it can be if you allow it to be, or it could
Yeah.
be a super cheap thing, and you glean the same amount of enjoyment as somebody who's spending tens of thousands of dollars on the thing. But I mean, you can get
Yeah.
into reefing photography. I mean, there's some beautiful phone pictures out there. Nova Reef
Mhm.
lately has been crushing it with his phone photography. And
Mhm.
if you get a Mac, because he got a clip-on macro from Amazon, and it works perfectly. Um,
Yeah.
you'll get out of it what you put into it, and it's not necessarily what you spend on it, right?
Exactly. And most of it is you, I think, will be far more successful if you learn, how to compose pictures. You learn how all of the different, like the apertures, the shutters, like all of that stuff, like it makes up the photos and
Yep.
stuff like that. Because you can have the best camera in the world, but if you don't understand the basics of how it works, you're not going to get anything that turns out the way you want it to.
Yeah, totally agree. Take a little bit of
So
time to learn. There's so many good resources online. YouTube for the visual
there really
learners out
is.
there, right? YouTube is amazing.
Hmm.
Teach you anything you want to
Hmm.
know about photography.
Yeah.
You
And like,
mentioned.
back
Go
to
ahead.
your
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, to what you're saying about like, reefing doesn't have to be expensive. The little eagle that I bought, I think the entire setup equipment wise
Yep.
for it, I think it ended up being like $300 or something like that. And I ran it completely stock for almost 2 years. I didn't upgrade anything on it until stuff started failing on me.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, I have a. It's a Spec 3 sitting over there with a tiny little light hanging off it, and I'm not gonna. I got too much stuff in the way, so I can't spin the camera. Um,
well, that's why we're in my office because where all my tanks are.
but it's super cheap, right? A heater. I did put an Inkbird on it just to keep it safe, and whatever light. There was a Pixie 30. Now it's a Nano box that I
Hmm.
got from Ken at Coral Frenzy. By the way, shout out to Ken at Coral
Hmm.
Frenzy. Always taking care of the customers. He does a great job helping me out, helping me understand the food. I usually give a shout out, so I hate to jump in with a little commercially thing, but Ken's awesome. Check out their food. But that tank's. I didn't cycle. Whatever. I cycled Chem Matrix in my sump downstairs for probably 2-3 months, and I set this tank up and I put sand in there and I dropped that matrix in there, and a week later it was good. I didn't have to go through any cycle at all. Oh, there was some Dr. Tim's that I put in there, but there was no cycle at all because of the cycled matrix and being so small. It's a little water change tank. I don't do any dosing on it, but
Yeah.
it's cheap, right? It's like $60
Mhm.
for the tank. It's similar to like Mogi did with his whatever $160 something cheapo tank.
Mhm.
You can do it for that.
Yeah. And I know like right now I'm dosing, I think Alpha or
Yep.
no, I am dosing Alpha on the Evo, but that's just because I have so much stuff in there right now while I'm trying to like transition everything over that
Yeah.
is just it's just consuming stuff more than I can
Tell me.
keep up with.
We'll
Change.
come back to All for Reef because I want to talk about that. So
Right.
remind me. But tell
I'll
me.
try.
Tell me about your new setup because you're in the middle of a new build, right?
Yeah, and actually it's a two-part kind of build. So basically with the last new build that I did, which was the 25-gallon lagoon,
Mm-hmm.
um for me, everybody I remember when I got it, I actually won it on Instagram. It's a really nice tank. I really, really like it. It's just for whatever reason though, with livestock stuff, I just haven't had any luck with it.
Okay.
So I'm going to repurpose it. I'm not getting rid of it or anything like that. But so what the plan is the tank that I actually built the stand for yesterday on is actually going to
Yep.
be an actual frag tank.
Okay.
I'm going to keep coral in it and do like coral grow out type stuff for all of my fellow local reefers and stuff like that.
Awesome.
I'm also going to kind of use it too as like a quarantine system for coral. I know that probably sounds really weird because, you know, it's like you don't want to mix your stuff and then end up killing everything. But I don't have a lot of stuff right now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the beginning, I think it would be good to use it for quarantining corals.
Yep.
And then what I'll be doing, and that'll be in one half of my basement. It'll be in this spot that like is like the utility room where there really isn't anything, so no one's gonna see it, so it can look like whatever.
Yep. Like my
And
tanks.
then the yours looks cool though, because
Oh,
it's got a
mine's.
bunch of cool
Oh, it's
stuff in
nasty.
it.
Yeah. So the pictures don't show how nasty it really is, but I don't clean anything. But go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. um, and then so then the lagoon is gonna also move over there, and I'm actually gonna try and use that as quarantining fish as I
Okay.
bring them in. And and then I haven't set it up yet. I actually have a water box frag tank, like their big frag tank
Awesome.
that's still sitting in boxes and stuff like that. So hopefully in the next month or so I'll be starting to put that together and that'll go where the lagoon is. But in order to kind of like coordinate everything, it's like you got to start setting up this one and then you can move this stuff. And then so it's a big process, and my basement is just completely torn apart with moving all of it.
That's very cool.
So yeah,
I watch everybody else do new builds and I don't participate. I just add more crap to my old build.
I'm hoping that this is the last new build I have for a
That's
while.
hilarious, and
For a while.
we'll remind you of this in like 5 years when that's not the case anymore.
Well, the thing is for me is I'm limited on space because my house isn't very big, but
Mm-hmm.
the other thing is too is I like the shallow tanks
Yep.
because I'm short and I don't like getting on a stool to do everything.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of ironic because where I have the Evo, I have it sitting on my bar, but it's far enough back to where I need a stool to do anything on it.
I was talking with Mighty Nanotank today, Ben, and he was looking at low boy frag tanks to potentially add if he can find some room, but the baby's taking up a lot of space, so we'll see. And I
He
think
doesn't need a room. I'm
what's
just
that? He
kidding.
doesn't need what? A lot of
He
room.
doesn't need a room.
And then
You
I think
kid.
Moki's gonna end up um, working on a frag tank. Hopefully, that would it would be
I think
nice.
peer pressure will to him.
Uh,
I
I,
actually
I
I
encourage that.
actually met him not that long after starting like reefing. So that was pretty cool.
Aquashella?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the first Aquashella I went to, and he was one of the people that I was like super excited to meet.
Awesome.
So
Yeah. World's friendliest guy, right? I mean, just genuinely friendly. He
yeah,
doesn't like when I gush about him, but the dude's just a really nice guy.
he really is. I was really surprised. You know, it's kind of one of those things. I was kind of taken back by it
Mm-hmm.
because he was at the time. I mean, he's even bigger now,
Yeah.
but like when I first started, it was like, you know, I'm sitting there like, you know, all starry eyed and like, oh wow, somebody like from YouTube, and I know who they are, and I'm so excited to meet them, you know.
And then, and you're lucky enough to be near BRS too, right? Because those guys show up at your local club. Is that right?
Yeah, they come to our local swap meets and stuff like that. Last swap, which was October, we were supposed to have one I think this weekend, but we had to cancel it for everything that's going
Yeah.
on.
Gotcha.
But yeah, they'll usually come and stuff like that. So they're really nice too. They're really nice guys. Last yeah, the last Sprag swap we had was about the time that their heaters came out.
Yeah.
So they were showing us all of that stuff. So that was pretty
Good.
cool.
Yep. I've been by BRS once. Went out to the cabin. Somehow talked my family into going with, and then on the way back to the airport, we hit BRS and did the tour, and it was cool. It was really cool to be able to see all the tanks that you see on YouTube, and there's a whole lot of them. It's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, they're about 30 minutes from my house.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I
because
would
I think
I would have
like Minneapolis is in between us.
gotcha. I would have more of a shopping problem than I do now. if I could just run over there. That would be amazing. What did I say I wanted to come back to? I wanted to come back to all for reef. So
Yes.
I don't know if you've tried to buy any lately.
Um, yeah, so that's actually kind of a funny thing. I've been trying to buy it recently because I'm out
Yep.
and I can't find it anywhere. So I think I'm just gonna have to more heavily rely on water changes to
So
keep up my elk.
you can make it. So a while back, I remember somebody saying something about making all for reef, but I couldn't remember what it was. And
Hmm.
I hit up Richard aficionado channel, and I
Oh,
and
okay.
I asked him.
He's nice too.
He's cool, and
Mm-hmm.
he knew right away what I was asking about, and he sent me the link from BRS, who worked with Lou at Tropic Marin to create the recipe to make your own all for reef. So I ordered all those goodies
Well,
from.
you'll have to send that to me.
Yeah, I'll send you the link. But I ordered all the
Okay.
goodies yesterday, day before. So I'm just gonna make, and it's scalable. So you can make as much all for reef as you want, um,
Okay.
using Tropic Marin supplies. So super easy to do. I know it isn't all for reef isn't available right now, and I saw some people that were looking for it and they're trying to buy it on eBay. Don't do that. Just make your own because the recipe is very easy. You just need a scale, a kitchen scale.
I have that.
Good. I'll send that to you. So hopefully that
All
helps
right.
somebody and you. That's cool. Let me run through
Yeah.
comments real quick, and
All
then I
right.
want to get on the subject of photo manipulation
Okay.
because I mean I've been holding the camera in my hand since I was probably 14. So since I was my son's age, and now I'm a grandpa. So I've taken a couple pictures and I understand. And I've been using Photoshop since version 1.5. So I understand a
Okay.
little bit. What do you do? I assume you shoot raw. How do you manage post?
Um,
How are you editing?
as dumb as it sounds, I'm terrible when it comes to that terminology stuff for all
I'm
that
sorry.
stuff. No, that's fine. I like within the last year and a half, I actually finally figured out how to use Lightroom.
Yep. No, no, that's perfect. So if you're shooting raw, that's a perfect solution.
Yeah, so basically, I have camera set or I have light settings for my lights, and
Mm-hmm.
if you guys want them, I'll have to figure out how to get a screenshot of it so you can see all the colors and stuff like that. Um, because the light settings that I have very little blues in them.
Gotcha.
Because that is because otherwise you have to like process the picture, remove all the blues, export it, bring it back in, remove all the blue. Like it creates it to be a nightmare, and I just don't want to deal with that.
Yep.
And and then that way too, because the goal with a lot of photography is you want to get as much of the settings and stuff like that right in the camera as you can, so you don't have as much post processing because who likes that?
I do.
It's very time consuming.
I have this super simple workflow that I do now because I don't change my lights. I shoot under blues. Uh,
I'd be curious to see what yours is.
it depends on what camera if I'm using. If I'm using the Nikon, it's a pain because it's old. It's a D7000. So it doesn't have the dynamic range that my Sony that I'm looking at right now, the Sony A6000, which is still an old camera, older,
Hmm.
but it's totally competent. It's a really good camera if you're looking for something. Carlos, I know you were talking about wanting to shoot with a real camera. Take a look at the Sony A series. You really can't go wrong. The lenses are fantastic. The bodies are fine. They're mirrorless, but they take really nice pictures.
You know, that is one thing I really want to try is using a mirrorless camera,
Yep.
but they're so expensive right now.
So take a look at a
Just can't
used
do it.
A6000. You'll find that they're
Okay.
ridiculously inexpensive. And I like the Sonys. This is my second Alpha Series Sony, and they've both been cheap and they're awesome. And then this one, you can hook it up to a device and use it for streaming. Like that's what I'm using right now. Because
You
it's.
know,
Go ahead.
that is something that I would be interested in is streaming or like even like YouTube videos, but
Hmm.
I don't really have the time to edit.
So I'm horrible at that, and I am so far behind on edited videos. Live is just so much easier to do since there's no
Hmm.
editing. Lynn, I'd like to mention Lynn Reef Nerd.
Hmm.
Do you follow her?
Um,
Check her
you
out.
know,
If you
I'll have to check her
All
out
right, if you
because
don't,
I'm a little behind on stuff with Instagram because there's just been so many moving parts with like trying to get all these tanks together.
gotcha. So Lynn's awesome. She's local to me. She's in between me
Okay.
and work, and she grows stuff like I have some amazing. There's some amazing reefers around here, and she's one of them. And then she, thank you, Lynn. She said she's got a couple of bottles if I need it. Lynn, you're not using Ulva Reef. You just have some laying around. Also, Fragile Reefer says that Reef Dudes has a live stream with Lou from Tropic Marin about the recipe for making your own. I think that's cool, right? Lou knows he can't produce this product fast enough, so he gives you the opportunity to make it yourself, and it's a really easy thing to do.
That's cool. Lou's really cool to talk to. The my one local fish store, they've had him come in as a presenter,
Oh, cool.
and it was really cool because at the time, it's like you're all rose-colored glasses. You don't really understand how any of this works. It just is like poof, it works.
Yep.
Then you get into then after you start it, it's like, oh no, now what? So I
he
I went yeah, I went to this presentation and that's how I kind of got hooked on like all for reef because
got
he
it.
explained really well how all of the different stuff works together.
Yep. It's an interesting product. It makes sense, and every tank is different.
Hmm.
So they don't give you a calculator how to target specific alkalinity with Alpha Reef. You just got to start dosing it. They have a suggestion, then you start dosing and
Hmm.
you work your way up. So if you use the product, I like the product. It works for me in the work tank. That's what I have downstairs,
Yeah.
and I'm using quite a bit of it now because that tank is taken off. I think it works pretty well. So give it a shot. Lynn says she is a hoarder, and I value that. I very much appreciate hoarders, managed hoarders. Um,
I I probably am a hoarder, but probably a hoarder of the wrong things. I seem to have a ton of tank parts
mhm.
lying around.
You always have to have
But
spares. I'm a huge spares person,
hmm.
and with no spares, then you have panic, and I'm not down for that. A
Hmm.
couple here. Reefer Noob says can't quite figure out raw format on his Polaroid. Any suggestions? Ha 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 ha. If you've ever called Tropic Marin, Lou is crazy cool to talk to. Aaron Shapiro provided. You know what? I haven't called, and he's super open about talking on the phone or emails. I need to do that. Um,
Hmm.
Lynn has had a Sony close to pulling the trigger on B&H Carlos. B&H is my lady jam. That place is awesome. I There's this pharmaceutical show I'll occasionally go to, and I get off of the train and I walk right past B&H, and it takes everything I have not to hang a right into that place and not go to the pharmaceutical show. I can tell you that. Um, Fragile Reefer's leaving, and oh, Lynn says she does not have a lot of toilet paper at home, but I think she's just saying that to throw off the zombies because they're going to come for it.
You'll have to trade her toilet paper for all for reef.
I could do that. And sadly I can't trade her corals because she has so much more than I do. It's amazing. Tell
You just
me,
gotta get the ones that she doesn't have.
she has everything. Like she's quite the collector. Tell me your thoughts on image manipulation in the reefing hobby. This is a touchy subject.
You know, it's hard in the sense because I feel like photography is a form of art.
Mm-hmm.
And when you manipulate photos, it's, an artist making their work. But at the same time, too, if you're manipulating them so much, and then selling the stuff using that,
Yep.
that's not good. I
That,
think it I think photo manipulation, it all depends on what you're going to ultimately use the photos for in the end.
that's an awesome and balanced, if I may say, perspective, because I totally agree, and I could not have said it better. Uh, I have a lot of beef, unnecessary beef, I suppose, only because I've been a photographer my whole life.
Hmm.
Um, if you're selling corals, and you know what, you can't see it, but maybe you can. I don't know if you have it up on your phone, but I've been scrolling through your Instagram as we talk, and
Okay.
all of your photos are natural. So whether you
Yeah.
have manipulated them or not is irrelevant because they look natural.
Well, thanks.
And I'm gonna leave it right here because it shows a picture of the lake where obviously you have your cabin. But because sadly I don't think I'm gonna get to go this year, which sucks out loud. But
Well, you'll just have to go at a different time
I'm
and
gonna
you
have to.
maybe you can experience Minnesota winter.
So I have experienced Winnipeg winters for work, which is essentially the same thing, but I would totally go and ice fish at Leech. Any
Hmm.
chance I got, I would go. That would be fun. Um, Carlos says Lynn is definitely a hoarder. I agree, Carlos, but Lynn is a good hoarder. I think there's good and bad hoarders. Um, I think pictures posted on Instagram are intended to make people either happy, feel good about themselves, share their successes or failures or whatever. Um,
Hmm.
Post your pictures however you want,
Hmm.
unless you're selling corals.
Yeah.
If you're selling corals, um, I feel that the picture should represent the accurate colors. If I walked in there and put on my silly orange glasses, that I would see.
Hmm. One thing I think that's pretty cool that I've seen some coral sellers do, I can't remember which one it was. They actually post the light settings that they have their corals on, as well as like the type of light.
Yep.
So it's like if you get the coral home and it's like, well, this doesn't look right under my light, you could like adjust it to be what their settings were to see it,
I think
which
that's
I think is kind of cool.
I agree. I think that's 50% of the way there because you could still manipulate on the other side. So you could take it under whites, under
True.
whatever Kelvin, and say, here's the picture under this K.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get it home and it looks a little different because somebody was like, man, let's bump up that saturation just a little bit.
Yeah, and like that's the one thing like with for instance like saturation that I don't understand is why bump it up like because I feel like it's almost like when you're dealing with exposure,
Yeah,
you make it go too far one way and all of a sudden you're blowing the image out and you can't really see anything, but it's got a bunch of color in it.
right.
And it's like that's not to me, I'm not a fan of that, but other people are. And if you're a fan of that, then go for it. But just don't be selling it.
Yep. I have both saturated and desaturated pictures. It just depends on the image. It depends on the mood I'm in. It depends on the mood I'm trying to project. It depends on the coral itself. A lot of times when
Hmm.
I color correct, I have to desaturate because it's a little messy.
Hmm.
Why can't
Usually
Lynn
mine
Reef
it's
Nerd? Why can't Lynn Reef Nerd find Lunette Lunu7 on Instagram? That's interesting. Lynn, I'll send you a link. What were you gonna say? Sorry. Worldwide corals and tidal gardens
Oh,
do
that's all
that.
right.
Oh, wait a minute,
Um,
Aaron. Worldwide corals. I think we're 30 seconds behind, so you have a chance to talk Lulu in a second. But worldwide corals
that's all
and
right.
tidal gardens do what, Aaron? Go
Oh,
ahead.
they break out their I think they break out their camera or their light
Do
settings.
they?
I think so.
Now,
I know for I'm pretty I think Tidal Gardens does.
I'm not gonna talk negative, but I'll absolutely. I appreciate what Than does at Tidal Gardens because
Hmm.
his photos are absolutely accurate, and that guy is a photographer and he is a
Hmm.
pro, and he isn't going to fiddle. I've not seen fiddled colors on Tidal Gardens.
Mm-mm. No. He's hashtag photography goals.
Totally, totally. And he's a purist, and you can tell. I mean, he's
Mhm.
shooting with some really nice equipment. I mean, you see, whatever. You saw that facility. Yeah. His new place is
Mhm.
amazing. So, yeah, purist.
Hope to go there someday.
Yeah,
Be
he's close
cool.
enough that I could probably pull that off if he would let me come in. I think that would be pretty amazing.
I think they're probably halfway between here or where I am and you are.
Oh, no, he's only 6 hours from me, and you're about a million years away. You're way far
Oh,
away.
that's true.
I've done that drive. The drive to the cabin for me is 24 hours, and right, that's up in Hubbard County. That's north of you quite a bit. 3 hours north of you, but two
Yep.
and a half hours. But yeah, you're really far away. I wish I enjoyed that drive. Did it once and have flown since.
Oh,
Um,
I don't blame you. I've done the drive from here to Arizona once.
oh yeah, that's
No,
far.
never again.
that's
Never again.
that's super far. But man, if I could, oh, I can't remember the name of the grocery store right now. If I could, I would retire and I would move to the cabin and I would absolutely go work at the grocery store because why not? I just got to get that kid through college. Once I get him through college, then I'm
You'll
gonna be.
retire and move to the cabin.
Yup, I'm gonna be looking at Minnesota sunsets. That's gonna happen. Let's see. Carlos and Lynn are talking back and forth, whatever. I think we touched on manipulation. We did. We
hmm
touched on all for reef. What else are
hmm
you into? What other hobbies do you have? This is a out of the blue question. I apologize.
No, that's okay. So it's kind of like so my dad, when I was a kid,
Hmm.
he was like, "Well, you have to collect something." Because both my parents had collections on like antiques and stuff like that.
Cool.
So I have a I think rather large, like record collection.
Very cool. What's your favorite?
Probably Fleetwood Mac or REO Speedwagon.
Right on. Aren't you too young for Ario?
No. No, but it's like it kind of it's perfect because when you're downstairs, when I'm downstairs working on my tank and stuff like that,
Yep.
you're close enough where you can just go and flip the record over. But yeah,
Yep.
otherwise that's pretty much it. Just like the fish stuff and photography. Right now I'm like super into playing Animal Crossing
That's
because
hilarious.
there's really it's fun.
I my kid has a video game gene. I have
hmm
in the past had the flight sim gene,
hmm
but I don't have enough time. I wish there was, and I've talked about this before. I wish there were two of me. I think the world would suffer if there were, but if there were two of me, I could get done all of the stuff I want to do. Like, right, I've been playing with these little lights like this, and building other lights that look like this, just to, I don't know, just to learn and see what I can do. Like, I want to make my own reef bright, and I'm super close with these parts here, so that and work, and because I'm working from home a whole lot, cleaning stuff that I haven't done that I should have done. So,
Isn't that weird how that works?
oh,
You're home a whole bunch, so all of a sudden everything gets cleaned, and it's like, oh, I didn't know I could clean that.
so yeah, did a whole lot of that in the basement this weekend.
hmm
And now you walk down there and you're like, man, this place is nice. Look at this. How come I don't treat it like
Wish
this
mine was
all the
like that.
time? Now, actually, this got, oh, you can't see it because I got your pictures hiding up right there. This, I
No,
didn't, I didn't do this. This is what you can't see is maybe, oh, you can on your phone. All of this,
that's what I'm looking off to
yeah, I got you.
down
This,
is my phone because yeah, my computer can't handle me having everything going right now.
this shelf behind me, my wife cleaned that up and that all looks good. I mean, that's just what we do now. We cook and clean and work from home. That's all we got going on. You're working from home too, yeah?
Yes. Yes, I'm fortunate enough that I'm able to keep working and working from home.
Yeah, I agree. There's I don't want to get into it because it's a tough subject.
Hmm.
But I feel for everybody, and I got that stay-at-home icon up there for a reason. I think
Hmm.
we are not halfway through. I wish we were, and I hope we get there soon.
Hmm.
It's a scary place. The world is scary. Oh, look, there's you with the BRS guys right now. Only you're not going to see it for 30 seconds, but I'll leave it there. Um,
Yeah.
Let me see. Let me look real quick. How do you take such good pics of fish? That's for you, because apparently Lynn found you online.
It's honestly probably like 100 to 250 bad ones, and then you get one good one. And it's just pretty much you set it up so your shutter is just continuous, and then you hope you get it, and then when you're processing everything, so kind of what my process is I'll go and I'll take a bunch of pictures. I'll put them onto my one computer screen and I'll scroll through them and I'm just dragging over the ones I think I want to edit.
Yep.
I'm not going to download 400 pictures that I just took in 20, 30, 40 minutes.
Yep.
And then I try it. And then when I start post processing them, then I decide it's kind of like I equalize the light in them. And then I decide if I want to keep going or not.
Gotcha.
So that's how I do it.
Aaron
It's kind of,
Shapiro's Aaron Shapiro, sorry. He says motor drive baby. So I mean that's what I do. I'm standing on the button if I'm chasing a fish in
mm-hmm.
autofocus and I'm just hoping for the best. I just took like 300 pictures and I'm hoping for one.
The other thing you really have to, that's kind of really a hard thing to learn that I had to learn and struggled with for a little bit when I started was with macro photography and even aquarium photography. You have to be looking at what you're taking a picture like dead on. You can't be slightly
Right.
turned or anything like that because you get distortion and
Awesome
it's
tip. You got to go
yeah,
straight
so
through the
like when you're
glass.
moving, yep, you can't move like like this. You're moving like,
Yep.
know, to,
Sliding with the glass.
yep,
Yep. Perfect tip. And
yeah.
then aperture. So bring up your ISO, bring up your shutter to a reasonable speed, and then close your aperture enough to increase that focal distance, increase that depth of field, so you have the chance of getting that fish in focus.
It's kind of interesting because I kind of do things a little bit different.
All right, what do you do?
I kind of like I set my aperture, but for my shutter speed, I leave it at I think it's 1/60th of a second
Okay,
because that's fast enough to hopefully stop motion blur.
got it.
And then I think for and then I think I just manipulate ISO, but usually with my light settings, my ISO is usually around 1200 to 2000.
What are you shooting with right now? We didn't talk about that, did we? Did you share what you're
Oh,
using? What body?
um yeah, so when Canon came out with the 60 Mark II, I think it was, is what it's called. I can't remember. It's what they came out with Mark series for the 60 full frame one.
Yep.
So then they put the 60, the regular one, on like clearance.
Okay.
So that's when I bought that one.
So you're shooting full frame.
Yeah, so I
Oh,
updated,
awesome.
I got up and I got a full frame camera. That was a learning curve
Yep.
because all my lenses it wasn't so much an issue like more towards the center of them,
Yep.
but when you got out is when I started having issues.
They blur out there, or they're dim.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Yeah. That's worth noting.
yep. And honestly, you're only going to get better at anything if you sit and take a million pictures. It's not going to be like, especially with like aquarium photography, like that was kind of a hard thing for me to get used to because when you're taking like a landscape picture, you can look in the camera and the readings like well mine, it tells you like the readings for like the light and stuff like that, and there's different like meters and stuff like that you can use to gauge on if you should adjust things. With photography and underwater, it's not really like that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you take a picture, you look at it, and then you figure out what you should be adjusting to your taste. At
So
least that's how I learned. And I was kind of frustrated where it was like, I took 10 pictures and none of these turned out. And then it's like, okay, now it's quantity to get the quality.
yep. So I normally shoot f4 or f8 or f16. I normally stay with those three. It just depends on what I'm looking for. I'm not normally chasing fish.
Mm-hmm.
So usually coral. So if I want to get polyps, then I'm at f4 or lower. And then
Yeah.
I usually just shoot at 60, and then I manage exposure with ISO.
Okay.
You could do that any number of ways, right? You set ISO at whatever you want, 400, just manage that with shutter. But that's kind of what I've been doing.
Yeah. It's whatever works for you.
Yep. If I'm shooting, if I want to get larger coral pieces, then just depending on where they are in the tank, I'll normally
Mm-hmm.
go just 8. But if I want to show like what's going on in a frag tank, then I try to close off that aperture as much as I can. Carlos, if you're paying attention, an open aperture is a very narrow depth of field.
Mm-hmm.
And the aperture is an iris, so it closes on itself like those cool doors in space movies, whatever.
Yeah.
But
Like this, yeah, like an iris.
yep. So the more closed the iris, the less light that's making it in, but that increases your depth of field. So what's in focus behind is also in focus in front. So if I'm
Mm-hmm.
shooting 16, f16, I have a pretty decent depth of field there to work with to try to keep the corals in focus-ish. Just depends on kind of what lens I'm using. That's kind of what I do. I don't know. You
Yeah.
play with it a little bit.
Yeah. And like your f stop range is usually that's usually what I am. I'm usually more on the lower side.
Yep. If I want a lunar scape of freaking corals where I'm just seeing individual tiny little polyps, I'm absolutely as low as I can
Mm-hmm.
with aperture because I
Yep.
just
And
want
then
that tiny
another,
little bit.
yeah. One thing I think to note too with macro photography is it doesn't have the depth of field like regular stuff.
That's
It's
true.
very flat.
Yep.
So whatever it is you're focusing on, that's what's going to be in focus, and then everything else will blur.
Good point. Because an f8 in macro is not f8 in a kit lens that comes with the camera.
Mm-mm.
It's going to
Mm-mm.
be super tight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably using wrong. It's going to be super narrow, so everything behind and in front is going to be out of focus.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yeah, you can see that on like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the pictures that I take, because I pretty much only shoot in macro for my fish tank. So
Yep.
it'll be interesting with this new build if what I change as far as like camera settings and camera equipment and stuff like that.
Actually, it's right here. So I use 2 macros depending on what camera I'm using. So this is a 30 macro from Sony, and that's what I use on the
Mm-hmm.
A series, and then I use a 90 mil Tamron macro for the Nikon.
Okay.
So it's nice having those
How do
two
you like the
sizes.
30?
Oh, the 30's awesome because you can slap
Is
that
it?
thing.
I've been
Yeah,
looking at getting that.
you can slap it against the glass, and the coral's just on the other side of the glass, and the 30 will catch it. Where the 90, you got to back up a little bit to get it.
Cool.
Yeah,
I might have to. That might be my next thing that I get.
because you can. I mean, it
These
opens up the
lights.
window a little bit, right? I mean, it opens your view up a little bit that you don't necessarily get
Mm-hmm.
with the 100 that you're shooting with.
Mm-hmm.
Let me look. Let me see what's going on here. AZ Reefer says I'm in trouble. I wonder why. Let me know. And Aaron, somebody said, oh, Carlos says, following you and your pictures. He loves the pictures that you're putting out there.
Oh, thanks. I'm
What's-
trying to get it so I have my own website so you can see them in big things. Like that's the one thing I don't really like about Instagram is that, they're like tiny,
Yep.
however big the phone is, and you can't really see them.
As
But
long
it's really good if like you is if you it's kind of out of focus, but because it's tiny, it makes
Yeah,
it okay.
yeah, that's a thing, and I agree with it. That's absolutely a thing. Let me
Mm-hmm.
see here. My next phone will focus on camera. I totally agree. The better. I have absolutely. This is a 7 plus, and I bought that just because of the camera that came on this phone, and now the stupid phone won't break, and I won't upgrade until it breaks. Let's see. Unless, well, I might go for the 5G with whatever Apple's going to release here in a little bit. Center weighted. Go
Disclaimer.
ahead. Go ahead.
I do use my iPhone on some of my pictures
Mm-hmm.
with a polyp lens.
Yep.
So not all of them are taken with a DSLR.
Center weighted ND filter to correct that. Aaron Shapiro. Aaron, let me know what you're talking about. Correcting what? Correcting cropped lenses on full frame bodies. Maybe that's what he's talking about. Oh yeah. Duh. That's the next line. Vignetting with full frame.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Center weighted ND. The only NDs I have are for GoPro. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say I was a weirdo and I talked to my sister before I started buying stuff, and she's like, just buy the full frame lenses.
Yep.
Don't even bother getting crop sensor ones because you'll outlive your, or you'll eventually want a better camera.
Yeah, that's true. If anybody has ever scrolled through my IG and saw the other than reefing photos I've taken, specifically Air Force stuff, that was all full frame.
Mm-hmm.
Fuji, there's a Fuji. All right. What time is it? 8:30. That's an hour. That's not bad.
Mm-mm.
You know a lot about cameras, and I appreciate that.
Not as much as some people.
You and,
Just enough to get me in trouble.
and you take good pictures. So what I'll do is I will in the in the description when I listen back tomorrow and edit the description, I'm going to. You can give me a thumbs up or thumbs down if you want me to share the link that you sent earlier. Some of your pictures.
Oh, go for it.
Okay.
The one thing that I do is because like for most people, it's like the reefing hobby is already expensive, if you want to call it that. That a lot of people also view like photography as being like expensive, and a lot of people don't have the ability or have the equipment because they wouldn't use it otherwise. So
Yep.
why would you spend a bunch of money on it if you're not going to use it?
Right.
So the way my local reef club works is we have in-home meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So a member of the club will host a meeting. Well, I bring my camera and I take pictures of their tanks, and my only stipulation is I get to use them on the TCMAS Instagram page because I
Awesome.
run their page too.
Okay.
So in that link, there's members tanks in there too, and then I always give them the files and stuff like that so they can use them, print them, do whatever it is that they
Oh,
want.
no, that's cool. Can you send me a link
So
to that later, and I'll include that in the description?
the what?
TCMAS.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay, cool. Unless I find it, but I want to make sure I got the right one. Maybe somebody
Yeah,
else
and
has
like
the same name.
yeah, and then too, like I know on the TCMAS one too, I also try my best to if people send me or pictures to use, I try and I'll use those, and then I try and tag them with their Instagram handle, but for sure their forum post,
Gotcha.
their forum name.
Okay.
So yeah, I thought if Reef to Reef is gonna be having to do it, I should do it too, or I should preach what I. But
Agreed.
yeah.
All you people out there that use somebody else's pictures, give people credit. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. That is fair, and that's kind of what. Yeah. I always tell you that story earlier. You can talk about it if you want.
Go ahead.
It's
You can talk about it if you want, but I think it worked out well.
Yeah.
And you see a whole lot of people watermarking their pictures, and I'm not a watermarker. I was like, whatever. I mean,
Mm-mm.
if I see it out there, then I may or may not address it. Just depends on where it is.
It depends on who's doing it too.
Agreed, but I don't watermark. So if you want to go ahead, mention it.
Okay, so I have one picture. I had a couple pictures that Reef to Reef took, and it was kind of at a spot where I had just lost a fish. I was having issues with my tank. You know, I just was not in a good mood. And then all of a sudden, my phone just completely blew up from members of my local reef club, people that I knew. They're like, "Hey, Reef to Reef is using your pictures, and they're not tagging you in it." And I was like, "Oh no." So I messaged them and I'm like, okay, you guys can either start crediting, you know, across the board whoever's pictures you're taking,
Yep.
or you can delete all my stuff and I'll just leave your forum. And they're like, well, you know, it's subject, you know, for us to use. You posted it here willingly, and I'm like, that's fine, but in your own like rules you say you can't take people's stuff without crediting them, so
Right.
why are you doing it yourselves? And since then they have credited the names of the Reef to Reef members whose photos they are using, so I'm really happy that they changed that, because it's like,
Yep.
as a community, it's like, let's help each other like out. You get to use cool photos, and in return, people who take the pictures, other people have the opportunity to talk to them about, hey, how'd you get that picture, or
Right.
how'd you set up your tank like that? It's a two-way community,
Yep.
and it benefits both parties rather than you're just using my stuff to get everybody to your stuff. So
Again, well said. I could not say it better. Uh,
yeah, it's like
a
I didn't
community.
want anything. All I wanted was, it's like, hey, you know, you like, this is a cool picture. How did you take it? You
Yep.
know, because I would want to help somebody like learn how to do that. It's not, you know, anything like that. So
A nod, a thumbs up, or a question related to what you did is
yeah,
right. It makes you feel good. It's
right. Well, not to mention, it's like, you know, the other thing that was really frustrating too was like you'd see like other play like you'd see them use picture of somebody's like entire build, and it's like,
yep.
whose is that?
Yeah. Right.
You know, and you have no idea because it's a link to like dosing instructions or something like that, which, you know, it's, you know, you want to use a picture to get the attention, but
Yep.
yeah. I
And you.
ended up meeting
Oh,
Reef Tree at Reefapalooza Chicago, and he's a pretty nice guy, and we actually, I think we're okay, we're on good
all
terms.
right. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And you touched on it, right? It's community.
Hmm.
Whether it's here on YouTube or whether it's on Instagram or whether it's at a meeting or reef to reef or whatever. It's community, and we're all. I mean, it's a hobby, right? We're all supposed to be helping each other.
Right, and it's like, you know, and it's not like to get rich, it's just to help each other out.
Totally.
So,
Oh,
but
if I didn't have this stuff to keep my brain cooking, I'd be a mess. More than I
hmm.
am already. But I really appreciate the community. I appreciate people like you. You have a lot of knowledge about what you're doing. You have a good way of saying it. You have a good way of sharing that information. I really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thanks.
That's super
I
cool.
have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to reefing. I
Yeah, you
kind of,
do.
I think I take a page out of Inappropriate Reefers book a lot.
You know what?
We'll just try it.
If we are not doing that, then we're not learning. I think that's one of the
Mm-mm.
better parts of how he approaches life. He just learns.
Hmm.
The only way you're gonna learn is try, and sometimes the way you try ain't the right way. But
Unfortunately, I'm one of those, I have to try it
mhm,
and fail in order to learn from it.
as long as you learn from it, that's all that matters, right?
Hmm.
And every once in a while you get it right, and you're like, yeah, I got
And
that right. All right,
then
so
it's like, I gotta tell everybody.
exactly.
But yeah,
Um,
I think photography is, it as a whole is like the reefing community. Just because it works for your tank doesn't mean it's going to work for somebody else's, or because
totally.
it works for somebody else's tank doesn't mean it's going to work for you. So there's plenty of right ways of doing things.
Carlos
Just
asked, speaking of right ways, Carlos asked real quick, what size macro? So he went 30, 50, and 90. What would your pick be, Lulu?
well, to be completely honest, I've only used the 100.
Yep.
So I'm kind of biased there, but I am really looking at getting either a 50 or a 30. It
Gotcha.
all depends on what you want to use it for.
So keep in mind that a 50 with the crop sensor is probably going to be a 75, right around
Sounds
there. I'm just going to average out.
Mhm.
So a 50 on a crop sensor, like what I use, is a 75 millimeter. So a 30 is a 45.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say we should probably explain. So a crop sensor, for instance, if you're using a full frame, it's like it's like your TV's on like widescreen.
Yep.
And when you're using a crop sensor, it's like it's on like standard. You know how like if you watch like an old movie,
Four
it's
by
like
three.
just a square. Yeah.
Yep.
So that's kind of, I guess, the difference between a crop sensor and a full frame. Is that a good way to put it?
That is. So if you're using a full frame with a full frame lens, then 50 millimeters is absolutely 50 millimeters, and it's a decent representation of your eye. But a cropped through, and most lenses that you see that are relatively inexpensive are crop sensor lenses. You get a multiplier that you like I said, if you take a 30 and you add the multiplier, you're just adding half of that lens at 1.5, so you're just adding on a little bit, so 45 millimeters, if that's clear. That was probably a little not clear, but you get the point. So I personally would pick the 30. Price wise, it should be more approachable. I don't know if that's a consideration. If it is, I believe the 30 is less expensive than the 90. The 30 gives you a little bit of flexibility because you could really get up close to a coral. And then you can also get a little wider shot if you want to back away a little bit. If you're trying to shoot a coral that's kind of far away from you, then the 100 that Lulu's using or the 90 that I have, that's absolutely a must because it's just too far away for the 30. So it kind of depends on, I say budget second, so what you're trying to shoot first, and then approach it through budget.
And just kind of reiterate what we were talking about earlier, there are places out there where you can actually rent stuff to try
Yep.
because some lenses are very expensive, so you might as well try it out.
And some of those rental shops will then sell that equipment used later down the
Hmm?
road. We mentioned B&H earlier. They sell used equipment. Amazon sells used equipment. That's actually where I got my Tamarin. So
Yep,
just
and
make. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, and the place by my house,
Yeah.
it's called National Camera. They sell used stuff too, and I believe they do it online too.
Okay. So just if you're gonna do that, look for a reputable source. Or if you're gonna eBay it, look for somebody with a whole lot of good reviews. Just be careful with what you're buying. And then and good point. I really like the rental market. Go out there and try it, see what's up. Spend 50, $100 on a weekend, 1 week rental, and see what you think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I didn't know about the rental market honestly until one of the girls that I work with on the side, she'd do like photography
Mm-hmm.
for weddings,
Yep.
and she'd have me go as her second shooter. And that's how she would try out new lenses, is she would just go and rent it for the weekend or be like, saw this, I want to try this. And it's like, okay. So then she let me play with all of it
I
too.
have I have shot events, but I'm scared to death of a pissed off bride. If I screwed up a wedding, if I screwed up a wedding, that'd be horrible. So I never did one.
There's
Yeah.
a reason why I take pictures of coral and not people.
I've yeah, agreed. Airplanes
You won't get mad at me.
airplanes were easy. They wouldn't get pissed either. So but yeah, coral's fun. Photography and reefing, absolutely a cool mashup of hobbies. If you've ever been interested in photography, follow Lulu, follow whoever, go out there and learn, do whatever you can to figure out how to use that thing you're holding, and then go from there and see what kind of pictures you take, and just keep taking pictures, because it's not like film. You mentioned it, right? I used to shoot film too. Now you can just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and do whatever you want, and then you just delete them and start back over.
It's so funny because I remember, so my sister, I can't remember what it was, but her film camera, I remember we used to have these things, you'd have to swap out the film, the actual like photograph film
Yep.
with like these Polaroids to do test shots.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember they were so expensive. She didn't like to use them because they weren't exactly cheap.
That was a large format
But
camera, right? That was larger than 35 millimeter, right? Or were you
I
doing
don't
with
remember
it?
what it was.
Yeah,
I
I remember
I'll
those.
ask her, she'll tell me.
I remember large formats a long time ago when my daughter was doing some modeling stuff. They were shooting large format, and they would absolutely have that Polaroid back that they would put on the camera to do their test shots before they started firing away with film. That's a long time ago. Holy crap. I forgot all about
It
that.
really isn't that long ago. If you think about it, like this, I think I was maybe like 10 or 12 when she was doing this.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like 10, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, but that's really not that long ago.
If my daughter was standing here and I said that was a way long time ago, she'd punch me in the neck. But because then
I think I'm about the same age as your daughter.
potentially.
Potentially.
So
So it's not that long ago. I
mhm.
don't think it is, so.
All right, fair enough, and we'll leave it there. So
Yeah,
uh,
I guess you want to do question and answer?
yeah, I think we touched on a whole lot of what's going on in chat. I don't think I
Okay.
missed anything.
Okay. I don't know
Um,
how long you usually have these go, I guess. I don't know how long you want to go.
I think we're getting close. So we have absolutely clobbered the topics that I wanted to touch on. How about
Awesome.
you're using a Triton.
Yes.
Tell
So
me about your Triton experience.
okay. So when I first started out, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do an Apex. I'm not going to get an Apex. Like, who needs that? I'll just do water changes. It's fine. Um, then I started having a lot of issues with the lagoon.
Yep.
And I'm like, okay, because I took a par meter home, I measured my par, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, it's not that. And then I was like trying all these different things to figure out what it is that was going on because I was having issues with keeping coral alive and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, I don't understand. I'm doing exactly everything the same in the Evo. So that's when I started using the Apex to monitor light and stuff like that.
Yep.
And then I eventually got a Triton.
Okay.
And I couldn't figure anything definitive out about that, like why I was having issues, like as far as like my levels and stuff like that. The best thing I can think of that kind of happened with like the corals is I used Marco Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the issues with my corals stem from I was trying to cure this purified rock at the same time as I was trying to keep coral alive. And it's
Okay.
like they were battling for the nutrition.
Yep.
So I was like, okay. And then I got like velvet ick or Brooknella or something, and it wiped out my tank. And I was like, okay. So I let it sit for 4 months and then, all that. And then it ended up being that I think I ended up having like urema in it, which there is no fallow period for.
Okay.
So that's when it's just like, whatever, I'll break it all down, take it. But then I was just like sitting there and I was like, well, this is kind of silly. Why am I not putting this Triton to use? Or Trident to use? So I moved it to the Evo.
Okay.
And it's given me a lot of information that I don't think I would normally have.
Yep.
I kind of am a bad person when it comes to I don't test regularly.
Mm-hmm.
I just kind of test when stuff looks bad, which is probably not a good idea. But it's been pretty interesting. I know a lot of people had asked me to tell or to ask with it being on a 10-gallon tank.
Yep.
and it drawing out water to do the test if it messes with my salinity. And surprisingly, it's not that, it doesn't mess with it that
The
much,
sample
or it
shouldn't be,
hasn't been.
right? What's the sample? 20 mils? I mean, it can't be that much.
Mm-mm.
It
But
does do some
also
flushing, right?
too, yeah, it does. And then
Yeah.
like too, I also had switched a bunch of the equipment. So when it came across like the 2 year mark, I upgraded the light so it now has an AI prime. I have a Nero 5 in it.
Okay.
I upgraded the pump to like a CC 1.0 or something like that, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So so yeah. So far I like it. It's been really easy to use. I'm not exactly the best person with technology. So I was a little bit worried. It kind of took me a minute to get it to like figure out and stuff like that.
Okay.
But so far it's been really nice. I'm surprised at how much I actually like it. And then when I started dosing all for reef,
Yep.
because I have pretty much all of the I have all of the LPS from the lagoon in the Evo right now, and that was a process to get it all in there.
Yep.
It's been really nice to see how much actually everything is consuming and stuff like that. Because I have it set up so it takes elk 4 times a day, and then magnesium and calcium twice.
Okay. That's a
So,
lot of testing. So I only test daily alkalinity if I'm changing something.
mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I'm weekly alk because I don't want to know. I just want to know that from weekend to weekend the value is pretty much the same. Then I can assume that whatever happened during the week is kind of the same. Um,
Mm-hmm.
since I'm using a GHL doser, which is rock solid. I've had no issues with that. Since I'm using that thing, I trust it. So a big thing for me was what pumps am I using? Do I trust them? And in the past, I didn't necessarily have that trust, but now I'm okay. Yeah, so I've really reduced my testing, but still, it's intriguing to have that data. You have a whole lot of data,
Mm-hmm.
and I like that, but I just haven't made that jump yet.
Yeah, the
I
only
don't know.
thing that kind of stinks is that like sometimes it's hard to get the reagents.
Okay.
But I've been lucky. I've been able to get them. I think it's definitely not as uh, it's still like a popular thing, but it's not like it was when it first came out when
Right.
there was so little of everything.
I
Um,
I'm
and I did wait. I waited probably 6 months after they came out. I got one. So I waited a while.
I'm just surprised that the aftermarket hasn't figured out the concentration of. I'm making an assumption that the Trident is dosing an acid to lower the
Hmm.
pH to a specific number, and then you can extrapolate from that value um, the carbonic changes to calculate your alkalinity. I'm just surprised that um, the aftermarket hasn't grabbed the concentration of acid from Neptune's reagent to duplicate it so you could buy that stuff anywhere.
Hmm. The one thing that kind of I really wish they would make is a like an automatic testing thing for nitrate.
Yeah,
I guess I'm not a scientist, so I don't understand why it seems to be impossible.
I don't think it's impossible. Isn't that what the isn't I'm gonna say it wrong, and I don't want to say it wrong. I think that the ion director from GHL
Hmm.
tests nitrates. I think you
Okay.
still have to test phosphates. Oh, somebody look that up real quick, because I think it will test. It tests one of them, nitrates or phosphates, and I think it's nitrates because that's easier to test than phosphates. So that would be amazing. I would really like to have automated nitrate testing. I agree. I'd like to have
Yeah.
phosphates too, but I think that's kind of hard.
We'll have to take one or the other for right now, I think.
Yep. Um, do you do any nitrate phosphate control in your tank?
Yeah, so like where I'm at, we have hard water
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately it's like they just switched which water tower in the city that I live in our
Gotcha.
water is coming from. So I use Rolla and I use Fosbon.
Okay. Fosban L, or
Uh,
just is it liquid or is it a solid?
no, it's a solid.
Okay. Because I use, yeah, Lynn says Reef Bot. Um, you could do nitrate and can you do phosphate with a Reef Bot? That I don't know. But I know, yeah. So Chris C confirmed that GHL will do nitrate with the Ion Director when that's out this spring-ish, this spring summer.
Ooh, I'll have to look into getting that.
So that's a, and I can speak to that. That's an all-in-one, so it doesn't need a controller. It can test nitrates without any other equipment. So it'll be a doser and
That's cool.
and the unit itself, the Ion
You
Director
know,
itself.
I wouldn't be totally opposed to like trying because remember I'll have two separate tanks now.
Yep.
Um, I'm one of those weird people like that I like to put things against each other to see how they do and compare to each other.
I
So
have, yeah.
like on the lagoon I have the Vortec Powerhead and I have the Radeon.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have the AI stuff on the Evol.
Yep.
So it's kind of like, I wonder which one I like of these better.
I have Ecotech. I have Radions. I have a Kessel. I have GHL. I have Reef Bright, Orphic, right? All these different manufacturers because I just want to see what they're making. And then also I am that way with controllers, so eCoral, GHL, and Neptune.
Hmm.
I have a favorite, but it's unfair of me to share. So,
um, that's fine. I won't push you. Maybe I'll
uh,
ask you later.
those Germans, they know what they're doing.
Hmm. What was I gonna say? Oh, that's a one thing that I'm trying to figure out right now. Like, I have an idea of like what I want to do for like a lighting system
Mm-hmm.
on my new water box, but um I'm kind of undecided on what to do for like the frag tank. I know I it's been suggested or you're supposed to do it so they're the same, but at the same time it's like I want to try something different because I want to know what works better.
Yeah, I don't subscribe to the same thing. What I do subscribe to is similar spectrums, and you can
Okay.
absolutely get the same or very similar spectrum from different manufacturers. The spectrums that we use to grow our corals are all kind of the same thing, whether you're spending an $800 on a light or
Hmm.
$70 on a light for a pico. The spectrum
Hmm.
that those lights make are basically the same. So you wouldn't buy an XR30 or a GHL Mitris LX7 to light that pico, right? That would just be unnecessary. Sorry, you can't see it. I'm pointing.
Overkill.
I'm pointing at nothing. But yeah, I mean, you can match spectrums.
Okay. Yeah, because like I know like right now what I'm thinking of doing is like a hybrid light
Mm-hmm.
on my display tank. Um, but I just haven't decided or figured out what would be the best thing to do.
I got you. I am I'm very LED. I'm very LED. It's it just makes sense to me. LED technology has progressed as far as I'm concerned, past what metal halide and T5 can do, because you
Hmm.
can recreate those spectrums almost nanometer to nanometer. So it's really not that big of a deal anymore. I know people have a ton of success with T5s, but for me, those things they're just too dim. You got to get a whole lot of those things, and you got to get them surprisingly close to the water. I like to have my lights, and it's just a preference thing. I like to have my lights a little higher and putting
Yeah.
out more power just so I can get my head in there and do whatever. But yeah, you could do hybrid a couple different ways. I'm a LED on LED hybrid kind of guy, so if I can hang other LEDs off of an LED just to get rid of shadowing, it just depends on kind of what LED I'm using, then I'm going to do that. And so far, I mean, Reef Bright's great. It's got a nice flood. Orphic is beautiful. It's a really well made piece of equipment, and it has like double the par over Reef Bright. And then there's some inexpensive. I did a thing on inexpensive light bars that are just really crazy inexpensive, that don't break and they just keep running and they put out good light. That's also a great budget option if that's what you need. Yep.
Look at it.
Or T5 hybrids it's a really popular thing. It just doesn't put out the light. It puts out a beautiful spectrum, but not the par that I'm looking for. So,
And I think too, because both of the tanks that I'm setting up, they're so shallow that I think I kind of win that way too.
yeah, you can. Yeah. I mean, any of those will work. And I think it absolutely comes down to personal preference, and there's no wrong way. I think no matter what you do, it'll be the right way, as long as you pick the proven bulbs and Blue Plus and Coral Plus or Orphix or whatever. Yeah, I mean, whatever, you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
it's all good stuff. All right. I think we're good. I really appreciate you being here and your knowledge and your willingness to share, and you're so full of crap that you were scared to be live because you did a great job. And thank you for being here. Tell us who you are and wrap this thing up for us.
Oh, I'm Lulu Lynette. I'm Lynette Lulu7 on Instagram, and yeah, I like taking pictures of my coral.
And you take beautiful pictures of your corals.
Thanks. And if anybody asks, I'm kind of an open book. If you message me, I'll try and get back. So if you have questions, I try and help, but honestly, you just gotta mess with your camera and play with it play with it and figure out what works best.
Yep. Carlos, if you have questions, hit her up. She'll point you in the right direction. She speaks all the right lingo. She knows what she's doing. You just look at her pictures and you can tell. All right. That's it for me. I think we're good. Lulu, hang out for a minute after I close this out.
All right.
Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate you stopping by. Happy reefing, and be kind, everyone. Thanks.